Now, there's over 13 trillion liters of water in the atmosphere at any given time. This is very clear that atmospheric water is a major natural resource that we need to tap into if we are to address the issue of water scarcity in some communities of the world. As I currently speak, there's about 1 billion people who lack access to clean drinkable water. And it doesn't take a genius to realize that we ought to find ways in which we address this using atmospheric water that is available to us, right? So there has been research that has been done to sort of tap into this resource. Other devices have been used by governments, local municipalities, and other industries. However, the current devices that are out there are either expensive or they work at relative humidity of about 60%. And if you look at the communities where water is required the most, is deserts, right? And deserts, the relative humidity there is rarely 60%, right? You'll probably find it around 40% or less, right? It's a really, really dry communities, and these are really poor communities. So if you're going to find it, you're going to have a device to address their problems, it has to be, first of all, affordable, right? These are communities that do not have resources to be able to get your most expensive equipment to provide water for them. So the device that the Yagi is introducing here and the sort of materials that is using metallo-organic frameworks, covalent organic frameworks, are cheap materials that could be used to address these issues in deserts and in poor communities. So it's certainly going towards the right direction in this paper and other publications where he has introduced metallo-organic frameworks to address this problem. He actually has a startup company where now he is upscaling the work that he has done in the lab to sort of now take it to industry. So this is why I get the sense now that he's looking at covalent organic frameworks if they can work for this, because then it'll be, if he's looking at cost, you do not want metals, right? You want, if you're looking at cost and you're going to be using metallo-organic frameworks, you are going to have the question of cost at some point. But if you're going to be using covalent organic frameworks, this is going to be a cheap material, right? So he's certainly looking at the bigger picture for as far as his research and his startup company is concerned. So this is very positive work for the community. So really excited about where this field is going. So without further ado, let's look at the device that Yagi has introduced. Right? Yagi relatively uses a very simple device, and it's actually very affordable. The materials to build the device are really cheap materials, and actually two of these devices that he introduced. The first one, he worked with a group in MIT, to which they then decided that it would be best to have now one device that is produced solely at UCB. Right now, actually, the startup company that they actually have now is using the device that they developed at UCB, and they're currently developing it to even better and better levels. Right, and the way that it works is a relatively simple concept. So you pack the material here in this layer. What then happens at night is that the device opens up, and then it allows air to come through, and it absorbs the water molecules from the air. And then what then happens during the day is that the device closes up, and then the heat from the sun then encourages the material to release the water molecules as water vapor. And then there's a condenser down below here, which then condenses the water vapor into water droplets, and then you collect the water down below. Obviously, the material that you pack in here, which is the morph for the cough, has to have some characteristics. So it's not going to be any other cough or any other morph that you're going to be putting on here. So the cough or the morph that you're going to have there must be stable in water, right? So because it makes sense, right? Because if you're going to have a material that absorbs water. It must be stable in water, because if it's not, then it defeats the whole purpose, right? That makes very good sense. And the other important one is the low regeneration temperature, right? This is very important when it comes to the harvesting stage, right? Because you want to encourage the release of the water molecules using a minimum energy. And this device uses solar energy, right? And it is self-powered using solar, which is remarkable from Yagi's side, right? So this is very important because the communities that you are serving themselves do generally, the poor communities and the communities in the deserts do not have access to electricity, right? So you want a device that's not going to inhibit the communities from getting water because they don't have access to one resource, right? So firstly, once you have that device, it should just be the alpha and omega for that particular problem, right? So now, the other property that is very important when you're characterizing the material must have an S-shaped absorption isotherm, right? And this is very important because you don't want a situation where the isotherm is not S-shaped. So if it's like spreading across a wide range, that means that the water uptake is going to be increasing as the pressure increases, right? And you don't want that situation. You want at a specific humidity and a specific pressure, you want the water uptake to be at optima, right? And as you can see here at around 0.38 is where we see an optimum water uptake going up, and then it plateaus. That is exactly what we need for our material. What informs the type of linkages that are used in this particular cough is the fact that imine-based linkages have proven to be stable in water at different temperatures and for prolonged periods of time. And what is actually very interesting here is the linking of a tetratopic and a tritopic linker, which results in a high connectivity cough. And they actually claim that the absence of the high polar functional groups and the low flexibility of the framework is what results in the lack of hysteric behavior of the cough, of this particular cough, which is quite interesting, really. It's actually an interesting claim that they made at the end, and I would really like a discussion in the comments as to what other people think about this claim. It doesn't seem strong enough for me. I really appreciate an engagement as to explore much in detail what this could mean, what are the limitations that could exist in this particular claim that they make here. As I mentioned before, water stability is a very important property as far as this material is concerned. So what they did here is they proved that the material is crystalline using PXRD, and then they soaked the material in water for 3 days, 6 days, 10 days, and 20 days to check whether it still retains crystallinity, of which, as you can see, obviously the crystallinity is awesome in all of those rounds. So that proved that this material could potentially be used in real life application, where Yagi is now looking to use this in his startup. But obviously, this material still has limitations, so there's a lot of research that needs to be done as far as covalent organic frameworks are concerned in applying them in water harvesting. Now, what was also important was also to check whether the material is still porous after it absorbs water, and this motivation is because some other materials that have been used, or some other coughs that have been candidates for water absorption or water harvesting have shown to fail when it comes to them being porous after absorbing water in the first instance. So what they did here was to soak the water, was to soak the material in water for 90 hours, and then what they then did was to then check whether it's still porous, now overlaying it against the original material, which was a very good study, because then other materials have failed to meet this test. Now, the other important aspect is recyclability test, right? Because you want this material to be recyclable. You don't want a material that when you use once, right? It's now you have to throw it away, because that's when costs become a real thing, right? So you want something that will be stable for a prolonged periods of time. Now, they actually went on to do something that was actually very interesting, which is water cycling stability test, which showed that this material is stable for over 300 cycles of absorption and deabsorption. So this is quite remarkable, because then this is a study that sort of motivates the industrial application of such materials upon improvements of the limitations that they have. So this is really, 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 really good. So I'm actually quite excited about this. So here are the cycles that they were able to get. It was about four cycles, which is really relatively good too for the water absorption analysis. So I mean, overall, I think this material is a very good candidate. They've actually started a really nice race in the core field to start looking at covalent organic frameworks for water absorption or water harvesting. So I mean, I think in conclusion, they've successfully synthesized, characterized COF 432, and they claim it's a new topology. This COF is capable of water harvesting, and they've shown that in detail. So in my comments to this, I think this is really well done. If you are interested in how they characterize the material and how they synthesize the linkers, we are welcome to go. There are links down below where we have included the SI and also the actual paper. Please go and read the material and engage, and let's have a conversation that pushes science forward. Also, do not forget to do what? Subscribe, like, share with friends, family, and confuse the hell out of everybody. Thank you very much.